Hello and welcome to part 3 of composing our nostalgic cue. So part 1 we put all the instruments that we might need and little phrases together. Part 2 we structured it into this 2-minute cue, bringing things in and out and layering. And now in part 3 what we're going to do is mix it all together, put it into audio stems ready to send out. So the first thing I'm going to do is take these different instrument tracks, get rid of ones I don't need, label them up, arrange them into a maximum of 5 different groups because I'm going to have a maximum of, well, 5 or 6 stems, and I want instruments grouped together that I can then put together. So I'm going to go through, tidy that up, back in a sec. Okay, so that's made everything look pretty. We've got labels, we've got colours, there's 5 groups that I've got there. Now I'm going to need some headphones because what I'm going to do is go through each of the tracks, solo them and see if they need any EQ. Remember, if the part you are playing requires the high frequencies, you can get rid of the lows. Be careful on organic instruments if you are getting rid of lows and highs, because it can make them sound synthetic. But you don't want lots of bass building up, for example, that or mids. Those are the main areas to listen out for. If you go through each one at a time, pick out its main area and make sure that's emphasized. Anything you don't need is cut out. So for example, let's do the piano. I'm going to solo this. I probably don't need the really low end. You wouldn't get rid of everything. But I don't need very low bass because we do have bass coming in there as well. Don't want them stepping on each other's feet, and literally go through them one at a time. So I actually want the higher frequencies of that. Might even raise that slightly. We're not boosting by a massive amount here, just picking out some of the frequencies. So we've got a 400 range there that we're just adding to. Okay, I'm going to go through the rest of them and see if they need EQ as well. See you in a bit. Right, I've now got EQ on each of the channels. Most of them are high pass filters, so we're making sure we don't muddy up the lower ends. Some of them I have tweaked to pull out some of the character of the sound. So I'm happy with their general sounds. The next thing I'm going to do is listen to the whole piece and think about any automation. Now, some of the tracks as I was composing, as you saw in the previous episodes, I automated as we went along. So the strings have already been done as we went along, as has some of the percussion. But now I want to listen to the whole thing in context and see if I need to fade any things in and out. I'm literally going to do that by pointing and clicking to adjust the volumes here, rather than using a fader to input them. And we'll come back when we've got that sounding good. Right, well, when going through that process and checking out the different automation, what I decided to do also was split out the cymbals and the glocks. I'm going to have them as a separate track as additional percussion alongside what is effectively drums in the cajon and the damage sounds, because they pretty much merge together. If somebody wanted to take out the cymbals and the glock, it might be a nice option. I only had 5 different groups anyway, and I know I've got 6 stems set up. I could do more if I wanted, but generally you want to stick to 5 or 6 stems at the maximum anyway, for sending to a library for them to play with. So the next step is now to get rid of myself, because last time I did this I was in the way of the mixer and it's about to get very big. So we've got all our tracks here, and as you can see they're lined up in the mixer. Now what I'm going to do is unhide the hidden parts of my template. So what you can see now is we've got stems 1 to 6 there. So stem 1 to stem 6, and we've also got reverbs 1 to 6 as well. What I want to do is use sends from each of the instrument tracks. They are going to go into different reverbs, so different amounts of reverb to make them sit in the same place. At the moment I've got them all defaulted as the Air Studio Hall. I can change that if I want to for particular instruments, and each of these is going to go into a particular stem. So reverb 1 will go to stem 1, for example. So at the moment we need to reroute these, because you never know what combination you're going to have here in your instruments, and you want to be hearing them on the stereo out to start with. What we are eventually going to do, and what I'm going to do now, is take, for example, these two. I'm going to put the output to bus 21. So this is now coming into stem 1, and we're going to call that keys stem. So both of these are now going into the keys stem. If we solo them, we hear nothing, because remember, this is an audio track. If we want to hear it, we need to input monitor what's going on and make sure we're at a place where we can hear it, and make sure the output is in the right place. And remember, if you are soloing these two, you need to solo the keys stem as well, and make sure it's on input monitoring, otherwise you won't hear anything because it's an audio track. So that sounds good. Then we will take a send, and we're going to create a keys reverb. I know it's the hall, so that'll be fine. This one also has to now go to the bus we want. So it's the keys stem. If you're trying to do it in solo mode, remember to turn that on. And what I need to do is pick the keys reverb. Now I can add the reverb level that I want for each of these. So what I'm going to do is literally that process. I'm going to route each thing, so by color code. So all the strings are going to go to stem 2. So that will become the string stem. I'll also have a string reverb. So the sends for these are going to go to string reverb, and I can add in the different amounts that I want. If I want to change which reverb it is, I can do so there in that one plugin. And also, instead of these going to the stereo out now, these are going to go to the string stem. So they go to the string stem as the standard sound, and then we also have some reverb coming in, which then also the string reverb. This is going to go to the string stem. So it's like having one of those, like a bucket hat, I sort of think of it. You know, we've got two drinks in either side of a baseball cap, and they go into the same thing. So they're both, you've got the instruments and you've got the reverb, they're both going into the stem. Admittedly, the reverb is being fed by the other can, and the amount of reverb that comes out depends on how much you open a little tap between them, I suppose. Weird analogy. But there you go. So I'm going to go through, do that for the, what I've got now, 6 stems I'm going to end up with, which is handy because it's a 6 stem template. And I'll come back when I've done that. So here we go, the fun bit. Just to double check yourself, if everything is out of solo, everything's out of mute, nothing's hidden. If I press play, I should not be able to hear anything. I can see there's sound coming out of instruments, that's feeding into reverbs, and nothing is coming through into the stems. If I put these on input monitoring, brilliant. We can hear everything. So that means that instead of putting these on input monitoring mode to create our stems, we now put these into record mode. And all I'm going to do is hit the record button from the start, and it is going to generate each of these 6 stems. I'll see you when we've done that. And there we have it. 6 stems ready to go. We can take them out of record mode. If we want to hear the whole piece, we can solo just those. Technically, we can just mute all the instruments and the reverbs, because now everything is baked into this track, or multiple stems. If I just want to do a drum and bass, just solo those. So really easy to now output the different stems that you need. All I want to do is check now at the end that we have a fade out. So just going to stick a MIDI region in to remind myself where we are. Okay, so we can fade out by there. Open up the automation and stick ourselves in a nicely curved fade to make sure everything is out. Okay, so that will be the end of our bounce region. We know we have definitely silenced everything. Let's come out of automation. And we are pretty much ready to now just do the final step, which is make sure we've got the intro at the right place, which sounds about right to me. Let's look at the waveform. Just going to be the So you don't want much longer than that from the start, literally a fraction of a second. and I'm going to just use the mastering assistant in Logic just to be safe. Make sure you save things as you go along, and I'm going to pop the mastering assistant on, have a little tweak with it and bring everything up to a sensible level. It's worth noting actually that while I was going through, I didn't say this specifically at the time, but I was making sure that we weren't overcooking any of the levels to get to a maximum volume or going over it and clipping while putting the track together, because I know that at the end I'm now going to put the mastering assistant on, which is going to bring everything up. Or you could do your own mastering sequence of limiters, compressors, however you like to do it. I'm going to trust in the Logic mastering assistant, give it a couple of tweaks if needed, and we'll come back when that's finished. And just like that, the mastering assistant has done its job. You will notice when I play this back now at the end that the volume increases because of that mastering change, and everything sort of merges together really nicely. We get that room hall feeling from Air Studios. It's also, I suppose there was a good argument for having, if I was doing this on a bigger mix rather than one of these smaller tutorials, you would have a second screen to put the mixer onto, because you end up with a lot of channels to deal with, and swapping between changing sizes isn't ideal. But there's another example. We wrote our music, we structured it, and then in this part we've EQ'd the different parts, converted them into audio stems, and we can now export that as our full cue. And if we then get asked for drum and bass stems or keys only, or each of the different stems, we can just quickly export those. And the bonus is, if any of your instruments ever got lost or changed, doesn't matter, you've converted everything to audio, so you can come back and get that same sound. Like and subscribe, always appreciated. I'll play this for you as an outro. See you in the next one. Bye for now.